Buenos días, good morning. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here to talk with Igna. First of all, I would like to dedicate this conversation within Libro to all the Ukrainian writers, translators, editors, illustrators, booksellers, printers, librarians, distributors, and readers who have lost their lives, being injured, psychologically damaged, or forced to leave their homes due to the infamous Russian invasion. But especially to Victoria Amelina, the author of A Home for Dawn, published in Spain by Avisor, who was mortally wounded on June 27, 2023 at 7:32 p.m. in the Ria Pizzeria in Kramatorsk, which was attacked by a Russian missile and died a few days later. 13 people died and more than 60 were injured that day. Victoria was accompanied by 3 Colombians, the writer Héctor Abad Faciolince, who has just published an extraordinary book, Ahora y en la hora. This is the book, came out a few weeks ago. I finished reading it yesterday. It's very moving. I think it's a great support to Ukraine and the fight of the Ukrainians, and also is a letter of love to Amelina, and to all the people that are still writing, fighting, and thinking about this story. Also with her was Sergio Jaramillo, one of the main negotiators of the peace agreement between the FARC guerrillas and the Colombian government, and the war reporter Catalina Gomez, a very good friend of mine. Is based in Tehran, but in the last 2 years has been in Ukraine most of the time writing about the war. And also with them was their Ukrainian fixer, Dima Kovalchuk. Victoria Melina had decided to dedicate herself to investigating and reporting on war crimes committed by Russian troops on Ukrainian soil. And I think a book, she couldn't finish it, but it's going to be published in a few weeks from now. Well, it's a pleasure to meet Igna Pilotnotko. I didn't...
Oh, very clear. We're very close.
Igna.
Igna,
Igna,
yes,
it's fine. A distinguished publisher, analyst, auditor, and marketing specialist, founder of the analytical project Indie Book Data in Ukraine, and associate partner of the publishing project Pineapple Lane Books in the United Kingdom. We're delighted that we're agreed to join us in this conversation in Libro. Well, first of all, thank you very much and welcome to Madrid.
Thank you.
Well, first of all, how was the Ukrainian book world reacted to the Russian invasion? And to what extent has the consolation of literature become an ally against discouragement and despair?
I think that, which is from a lot of people who are sitting here, you know how it happened and what happened, so because we can see familiar Ukrainian faces. But for our European colleagues, the main thing that happened after 24th of February, the market frozen, but we thought that it died. So there was a moment when nothing was happening. So there were booksellers and publishers whose warehouses were instantly occupied or destroyed. There were a lot of editors, writers, translators who were forced to become refugees in the Europe or other countries. We should also understand, as it is in the Spanish-speaking countries, the majority of people, for the employers in the publishing industry are women aged in their 30s, let's say. So these women are usually women with small kids, and they were the ones who were forced to leave their homes. So there was a moment when something was still going. So for people who had full-time jobs, they were kind of continuing to do what they were doing. But for many of us, everything just stopped. And I do remember in the first week of the March, which was like I think it was like 2 weeks or 3 weeks after the beginning of the full-scale aggression, when Anton Martynov, the founder and CEO of one of the Ukrainian publishing houses, wrote a moving post in social media when he where he said that we received the first online order and it was paid. The first book that was ordered during the full-scale war, and suddenly the team realized that, oh, someone wants to read books. Oh, someone needs the books now. So after that, like day by day, we kind of, I think, when the Russian troops were forced to move from Kiev, and the occupation of Bucha, Irpin, and the Chernihiv region, then it kind of revived, because still, as in many countries, the capital of the country is like the major driver of all the events, businesses, and everything. Though we do have a unique situation when we have two other locations, which is Kharkiv, very eastern, and Lviv, very western, and these three Western, Central, and Eastern cities are major in terms of the whole publishing and book industry. So after that, it kind of moved forward, but then a lot of publishers who had, for example, children's books portfolios, they realized that they've lost all of their customers because the customers moved with their parents to another countries. And then you don't have any ways to export your Ukrainian books, because nobody thought that we will have a huge need in Ukrainian books somewhere in Poland, Portugal, or Mexico, or somewhere. So I think the first, till the end of August 2022, it was still very chaotic. Mm-hmm. And then it kind of settled. So as we can see, the majority of the publishers survived, mostly because they were, honestly, they were lucky.
In Ukraine, yeah.
Yes, they remain in Ukraine, because we still understand that a lot of men are still in Ukraine, and a lot of women are still in Ukraine by choice. So for that reason, the whole industry is still working inside of Ukraine. And me, myself, at the beginning of the war, I was living in London, and then I moved back mostly to Ukraine, because it's the place where I should be, where I'm supposed to be at these times. And we have what to do there, and it is vital to be there, to have these personal interactions one-on-one, or to be part of big festivals. So, for example, we've counted during I didn't see the data from September yet, because we're still in the beginning of October, but in August we had 6 book festivals in 6 different cities, wow. Not the capital, which is very important, because usually we have 2 big events in capital, and we can, okay, that's fine, that's how it works. Mm-hmm. But at this point, everything is changing, and it is very important to be there. And also, since there is a chance to say this to European colleagues, you are very, very welcome in Ukraine, because every single guest, European guest, that has the courage to join any Ukrainian team, any festival, any event in person, is way more powerful message that we are united together and everything. So since this last part of 2022, everything became more clear. We were prepared because of the COVID pandemic. We were very ready to work remote. So a lot of women editors, translators still worked remote, just from other countries. And then the export routes were formed for children's books. Bookshops are open, Ukrainian bookshops are opening in a lot of cities and countries. And then we have bookshelves with Ukrainian literature in the libraries. And it is moving now. It is difficult, but still moving. So I'd say that nowadays the topic of this conversation, in terms how market works in the circumstances of catastrophe or a huge disaster, is that we can allow ourselves to be more brave and to be to have a freedom to make choices. If you always had a dream to open a bookshop, that's your moment to do it. If you always wanted to have a publisher, to open a publishing house, that's your moment to do it. And then we have a huge boom in all the new bookshops, and then we have 79 new publishing houses.
79?
79 during 2025. Wow. It's not even whole 3 years. So it doesn't mean that all of them will survive. Some of them will publish 1, 2, 3, 5 titles, and that's their path, and that's fine. But some of them will have a long-lasting history, and they will kind of like in 50 years they will be talking that they were opened and launched during a full-scale invasion, which is...
And how did you manage to find the paper, to put the machines on printing, working again, to the ink and the distribution? Because under war, all this that is not easy to do in a normal country like Spain. But under war, how do you find the paper? How do you find the ways to find the readers and to find the bookshops and the libraries?
Yeah, so in terms of how to create a book, like the production costs, the thing is that we do have a very, very strong printer industry. So there are a few, especially in Kharkiv, that were famous for printing
and were
books.
Not destroyed.
The one of that was destroyed a year ago, Factor Druk, it was printing for, I don't know, like 20 or 30 countries worldwide. So their main markets were Ukraine plus export. It was not like, like mainly we publish for Ukraine and then we have some sorts of export. And because we should understand that with full-scale war, the war didn't start. The war started in 2014. So a lot of businesses, and we are talking about more ethical business, which is publishing and book industry, they've stopped exporting or dealing with Russia and Belarus way before the full scale. So for them, they've already changed their export to work with
other countries.
French, German, Polish clients. So for them, first of all, they had some stock of the goods, of the paper and everything. They had contracts, everything was signed. We did have in 2022 and 2023, we had a huge problem with the borders because of so Russia was blocking the Black Sea, and then we had crisis on the border with too many lorries and trucks trying to deliver goods. So I think the largest queue that I've seen was like 15 kilometers long, just the queue on the road with trucks trying to get something. And then you have things more important than paper. You have, for example, the diesel, like oil and stuff, which is vital for the country, which kind of have to be moved in this queue. So, I can't say that the books were left aside, but we did have huge disruption in the production cycles. So that led to, in terms of specific, very unique but useful things that Ukrainian market created. For example, we now have publishers who created the idea of a blitz marketing campaign. For example, we have the largest book arsenal festival. It's usually held in the end of May. So there is one specific publisher, Vavilonska Biblioteka, which is Library of Babel, and they do, they never did it before, but now they do one surprise book. Nobody knows what is the book. They just they have the idea when they present a new book, they changed the color scheme of their logo. So they just change it and you know that it's happening and they write that it's happening, but you have no idea what the book is. And this book for 2 years in a row, this surprise title is their #1 bestseller on the largest book fair, which is a thing because you cannot guarantee that your pre-order will be delivered not just in a specific date, but even in a forthcoming month. And because of that, you don't want people or readers to be frustrated because they don't have too much money. They make a decision to pre-order a book, and they kind of want this book to be delivered. They will patiently wait, but it's still you don't want to be that publisher who postpones your book launch for like one time, second time, third time. So because of that, this is like a wonderful idea to do. You don't have to do like 18 months of pre-launch PR activity of like, we've signed the author, we have a book title, now we're doing a book cover reveal, now we have like, I don't know, interviews in media. Sometimes you just don't do that, or you can do it, but not in a way, pre-order this book, this is your link. You usually just make it more fluid and like you have more freedom in terms of being worried that you're not delivering on time. And this is a wonderful thing, which was never possible 5 years ago. No one would do that. That's too risky.
Yeah.
And now we have a publisher who continues doing this, so we believe that there will be others who will join this idea of like blitz campaign for the book. Just there is a book, you can now buy it, not this pre-launch stuff.
Then the industry survive and face the war under a lot of good ideas. But what about the readers? Do you think that readers find literature and books like a sort of consolation under these difficult times?
I would say that this is one of the main, I see the nodding in the audience. This is because let's be a bit cynical for the moment. So we have a lot of ways how to entertain ourselves during our life. We can, for example, go to a concert. So, for example, not just Kyiv, but many Ukrainian cities. I've been to Madonna, Depeche Mode, Paul McCartney, Elton John, Jennifer Lopez. All of them visited Ukraine. You can just go there. And then suddenly you can't. Which doesn't, like, you're not kind of supposed to want to go to the concert when something like that hideous is happening. But on the other hand, I have my usual joke is, how can you sleep when the missiles are flying? So what, I shouldn't sleep for 3 years? So this is the general idea, like you need to have this distraction. But then all of this big events are taken away because they are not safe, even in terms of if they're Ukrainian artists, they might be very, very keen on doing something, but it's not safe to have that many people, and you're not in the bomb shelter, so you can't...
it's a temptation for the killers.
Yes, yeah, it's like, here's your press release where to shoot the next missile. So because of that, we found out that literature is very keen on joining these empty spots. For example, when we lost concerts, the boom on theater plays started. So, for example, in Kyiv, you cannot buy a theater ticket like for 2 months, so you need to buy them just now, because this is an experience in the audience when you can be distracted totally from your everyday, and you do need that. And because of that, then you can, as you can imagine, like we're not talking about the capital. Usually in like big, not the largest city, you have one theater for adults and one for kids. They have like 6 plays per season. You've seen them all. You need something more, something extra. And then literature stepped in. So, for example, we had this summer, we had just an acting school as a part of one of the Kyiv theaters. They just had in their graduational play, and they've chosen the book by Ukrainian author Roman Golubovsky. Elesmateri will live with us. Elesmateri is a dinosaur. I'm not sure, probably, if someone knows. So it's like a fun avant-garde book, and they've chosen it like just students, acting students who were performing. So usually only their relatives visit this type of show. They had 3 additional shows for people who just wanted to visit, just to see. And those people were not just random people. Those people were who read the book, enjoyed the book, and wanted to see the play. Then we had one of the Ukrainian long sellers by Ilarion Pavluk, which is... I see that you're interested in The Darkness, which is the kind of more leans to a thriller. And previous years, we were just talking that it is impossible to make it a play out of it. And now the question is, who's going to make the play first? And now we have a theater who's performing in 2 different cities at the same time. And they sold out the tickets like in 2 hours. The fans just bought everything. And I think that the pinnacle of all of this is that there is a team, Stratovich agency, and they've created the whole season of literary events with the authors on the theater stage. And then you have suddenly sold outs in the theaters with the writers, poets, and then sometimes they mix musical performance with literature evenings. But it's like very, very legitimate literature evenings. To imagine that you will have 400 seats sold out 3 weeks before the event, it's almost impossible. And then we also had Frontera would confirm that last year, when the literary platform Frontera relaunched their big festival in Lutsk, there was a good friend of mine, a Portuguese guest, Ana França, who said, I can't imagine people in Porto joining on Sunday at noon to listen about Germanic translations.
Wow.
And there is 1,000 people just sitting, chilling on the lawns, listening a proper academic lecture by a scholar who is teaching in the university, who is talking about different ways of translating this into Ukrainian culture, or like cross-translating and everything. So that's the thing when you don't have other things where to get this consolation and emotions and to be distracted and to escape to a different world. That's when books come. And also I think this is the main reason for the boom on opening the new bookstores. Not just because people want to open them, but they see the avid desire from readers, not just to buy a book, or we know that 79 new publishers prove that they want to buy a book, but also to visit a space, to have the experience.
The contact, the human contact.
To allow yourself just to have a talk, a conversation with a bookseller, to allow yourself this impulse to buy a book because someone just told you about the book, not being very meticulous, I need this book, it's on my bookshelf, book list for many, many months. No, just because you want it. You have to have a glass of wine, open it and read it in the space. And this is vital for the reading community, I think. This is the main thing that drives the market.
While I was covering the war in Bosnia, in Sarajevo, I met a very big group of actors that they decided to make theater because they thought that were more important for their own humanity and for the future of Bosnia to do theater than to go to fight in the front. Because it's not going to change anything if a few actors were to the front to fight. I think perhaps it's the same. In order to survive and to be healthy in brain conditions, about the strength to survive and not to become a monster, you need to preserve this kind of connection with books and humanities, just not to lose your own human conditions. Perhaps it's the same.
I would say that the idea in general is very the same. Maybe there is a big difference in the arguments in terms of I do know a lot of actors who decided to stop their acting career because they are much more needed on the front line, or just supplying the army. Not technically, you might not be on the on the front line, but you will be joining military. For example, a lot of Ukrainian authors are very good with words, as this is their main specialty. They work for Ukrainian army in terms of writing press releases and covering everything. So it is a very difficult and I think very personal for each person in Ukraine, a topic on whether you think that you will be more important here or there. But the general idea that you need this distraction, you need culture, you need some sense of normality, it is there. Just occasionally you might think, well, maybe women will be better at doing this when men are busy. But we know a lot of Ukrainian women who joined the army. So I myself, as many, many Ukrainians, each day I have like a question to myself, whether might I join the army in terms of just being a very productive office manager in one of the divisions, because I'm good with this, with paperwork, so maybe I can be helpful, or I can be more helpful as a volunteer now, or as a cultural diplomat. So it is
doing what we are doing here.
Yeah. So and for me, it is this. You always have the sense and the feeling of guilt, because you're not doing enough, and you're always doing not enough comparing to someone else. And those people do not ask you to compare, but you do this unconsciously or subconsciously. And I think I would quote here a wonderful Ukrainian poet and director, Irina Tsilik, who usually says that, and then I look at the other woman that I know whose husband is a prisoner of war or something, and I feel guilty of being not in that position when my husband is with me. So I think that this is like this huge dilemma doesn't have any. Like, we don't have any resolution for it. At some point, literature will be able to work with these things, and that's one of the purposes of literature, of deconstructing everything and thinking and like reinventing the values, or like just showing us our values. But I don't think, like, it is very tough. This is the huge dilemma. I think any person who's related to Ukraine can say that this is our everyday.
Yeah. How is the library system doing at this time? The main libraries in the country are open and working properly?
Yes, so we do have very few private libraries, because after the Soviet Union finally collapsed, we got this like huge system which was working. It was not working like in a very bureaucratic way, but it was still working. So we have a big network of public libraries, and we have a network of school libraries and everything related, or academic libraries related to the educational system. And all of them report to the government. So generally speaking, the government knows everything that's going on with the libraries. And then occasionally we have bad news, like for example, in some city, in one of the cities, the buildings were bombed and the library was damaged or destroyed. So in this case, it depends on whose authority is. So for example, with schools and universities, it is kind of easier to flood with the new books. With public libraries, it is a problem, because they have this curated selection of books created for many decades. They've spent on creating that, and then they've lost everything one day. And it is also a problem because you can't just move a library. So if you're a bookseller, if you have a bookshop, you can just move it. If you make a decision to move from some more dangerous region to less dangerous region, still you might lose everything, but the same way as you might lose your, I don't know, shoes shop, or if you sell any goods, you might lose it. That's the reality. But with libraries, you cannot just move them. You need to have the authority written that this specific region is being evacuated completely. And then when something might be moved, but nobody is busy with the books at this point, because they are evacuating elderly people and children. So occasionally they lose everything. Plus, with the territories that were in the beginning occupied, it was all like very sudden. So everything just was lost. So in these terms, Ukrainian society steps in, and writers, readers, and publishers, because we have a huge number of campaigns to refill the libraries. So if the library lost a lot, it is very easy. You just if you're even not a blogger, just a random person who is active on social media, you just write, explain everything, give context. But in Ukrainian reality, you fact check everything. So usually you speak on the phone with the librarian. I know people who visit the libraries or temporary places where the remains of the books are kept, just to make sure that it's not a scam, that they really need it, because everything is now validated and fact-checked in Ukraine. That's the reality. And if you do kind of confirm that, yes, I've seen with my own eyes, it is very easy to have publishers on board, writers who are willing to donate their books. So in these terms, if you ever seen there is a big index on charity, the world one. So Ukraine, since 2014, Ukraine is like top 5 the whole time and occasionally number 1, because they do not consider charity or volunteering as just giving money, because poor countries do not have extra money just to donate the whole time. But you can dedicate your time, you can dedicate your own resources in terms of doing something logistically, just to go somewhere, pick the books up, and then bring them somewhere. And in these terms, Ukraine is always in the top of the list. So this is kind of the very unique part of the society, of the culture, to be a part of, like, any Ukrainian is definitely involved in some sort of volunteering. So it is very easy just to put your effort in this space, and then you kind of refilled the library. You've received all these lovely pictures of videos or first events relaunched. Then if there is an interest, depending on the level of damage, then you might have some businessmen who are willing to repair the building or do some sort of like administrative stuff. And then you have this library back to life again, which is, and now we have lovely campaigns, like they have stamps with this donated on this day related to. So it is important also to have a memory of how this library was revived again.
It's very important.
Yeah. So I should say that it is very difficult in terms of the whole system, because if you have 20% of the country or almost 20% occupied, then you have another 10, 15 heavily bombed, then definitely you're losing, like, I don't know, 1/3 of all of your, or potentially losing 1/3 of all of your funds and books. But in terms of how the system responds, as an analytic, I would say that the system responds really well, because it is kind of like very, very sustainable. And we also, I should mention that we are devastated every time we see or hear how Russian, on the occupied territories, how Russian troops are destroying, just burning Ukrainian books. It's very, very World War II style how it's done. So they are eliminating Ukrainian language again in our history.
It's part of the
this is the part of their state
to destroy
policy.
the memory, to destroy the language, to destroy the identity.
And libraries, especially school libraries, librarians and teachers, especially teachers who teach the preliminary schools, like the youngest pupils, that's the main target for them. And there are a lot of kidnaps, a lot of tortures in that department, unfortunately. So we should acknowledge that it comes with a huge price tag, which is priceless in terms of people's lives, not just books that can be reprinted and re-granted, re-given.
You are at Libro. What did you expect from your colleagues from the Spanish book industry to support and to help Ukraine at this moment?
I would say that for me, Libro is very, very my type of festival, because I'm working with business. So I'm working with how to calculate the effectiveness of your business. My first education is in finance. So for me, it's this B2B format is very useful. And I'm glad that Spanish publishers are keen on, we're going to just join go to your stand and just maybe just listen about your titles. Maybe we do need a Ukrainian book that we will translate. It does require a lot of work from Ukrainian side, because let's be honest, we had a pool of prominent, experienced right managers, but a lot of them were men, and they do not leave Ukraine. Some of them joined the army now. So, and occasionally even women, they've changed their positions, countries, and jobs. So we do have a few mentoring courses for the rights in Ukraine, just this in terms of how to communicate with foreign publishers. And it is vital to have this ability to go to talk. Ukrainians can show what we can give to the Spanish-speaking markets, and then Spanish publishers or Spanish-speaking publishers can show what is available, like what spots, what niches are interesting for Ukrainian publishers. And it works vice versa, because for Ukraine, we predominantly in the trade market, in the commercial market, we predominantly read and sell translated books, plus translated fiction, and Spanish authors from Colombia, from Mexico, from Argentina, they are very popular. We have specific publishers whose the whole work and idea is dedicated specifically to translating from Spanish language. And I think we have two of them now. So one Compass is presented on our stand, but they unfortunately are not present here live, and the other one is a new one, Espana. They have started working, and one of the founders was very famous medic from Azovstal, the one who was prisoner of war, and she was at some point exchanged, and she with her friends started a new publishing house, and I think it's very, very interesting that it is called Espana, and they are generally focused on publishing Spanish titles or Spanish-speaking titles, translated them into Ukrainian. So for me, there is a huge potential. Will the Western markets be fed up with Ukrainian titles? Well, it usually works as in any other situation. So first of all, when something happens, some catastrophe happens, you have poetry, which is the fastest way to react and which gives you the feeling and sense, not just the cold mind and understanding. Then you have nonfiction, and in these terms, Western audience prefers to have their authors who will cover Ukrainian topic, which has a point in terms of they know the requirements, then they know the scale of the author, and sometimes the outsider's point of view is very important and more kind of objective. But sometimes it's when Ukrainian publishers want to buy this title and translate it to Ukrainian, and when they read it, there might be a lot of Russian propaganda narratives, which are deeply embedded unfortunately, in each of us, and in my mind too, because we are under this pressure for at least 30 years. Their KGB network didn't disappear one day in 1991. So unfortunately, in Ukraine, we should be cautious with it. But on the other hand, there are Ukrainian writers who do write and cover nonfiction stories about Ukraine, about full scale. It is more difficult for them to get to Western markets, but it is possible. We have a lot of examples, and usually they start from English or German speaking, just because we have a very strong literary agents present there, like advocating for Ukrainian writers. And then after nonfiction, you have fiction, which has to have this, like, you need to have time to digest what happened, and then using fictional instruments and tools to create a big story, which is not just a straightforward.
It's too soon for that.
I would quote Katerina Kalitko, who is, I'd say, the most powerful female poet voice of Ukraine. And she also translates from Balkan languages. And I do like this quote that she says that in the Balkan region, they needed to have a generation of people who were 5-7 years old when it started for them. So they are witnesses, and they do remember. They were not infants, but they still have, when they will be in their 30s, they will write a prominent book with having their way of experience and showing, and they will be mature enough in terms of having the 7th, 8th book published and being acclaimed authors. I can't say that this is a recipe that only our kids will write these books, but it gives a sort of perspective that we need this distance, like 20 years, 30 years. And because this is an ongoing war, we never know what is the counting point. Should we start counting 30 years from 2014, 2022, or when will it end? So with fiction, it is kind of like holding back. But I'd rather wait than have a lot of very shallow books or something. And I'm happy that, yeah, we do have occasionally, there are book titles that are trying to be published in Ukraine, but I am happy that Ukrainian readers react very fiercely in terms of, no, you're not allowed to name the novel Bucha because that's too provocative.
Yeah.
And that's not like you're not allowed because someone said that you're not allowed. Just people, it's not even canceling, it's just you know that people will be disappointed and you will not have sales. So it is just easier just to say that, yeah, okay, we're not going to publish this right now.
We'll see.
Yeah, so I think that in these terms, poetry, then nonfiction, and then fiction. With children's books, it is more complicated because it's the part of the work that I do as an analyst in Ukraine is I'm collecting data from booksellers and working also with publishers, trying to understand the landscape of which genres are more popular. Average prices, like the audience and everything. So occasionally I have a problem with creating a new niche, and sometimes it breaks my heart to make this decision because, for example, we have military prose, military prose about Russian-Ukrainian war in 21st century. Then we have nonfiction on the same topic. Then we have poetry on the same topic. And now I have to create children's books on the same topic.
Yeah.
Because there already are titles on how to deal with grief, how to explain like the children's books on why your daddy is not here. And it breaks the heart, but on the other hand, as an analyst, I know that if you have more than 10 titles and you have a sensible understanding that the number of the titles will grow year to year, you should create this niche, but I just can't do it. So at this moment, it's still in the children's section. But it's going to grow, and eventually we will have to make this decision. It's a tragedy, but it is what it is. And in terms of the first and the main, the poetry for adults, which comes the first, the next event, I would really, really ask you to join with my colleague Bogdana, who will talk about Ukrainian phenomenal interest in poetry. I did have a very interesting way of dealing with trauma during the Bucha and all of that events. I was taking the fiercest military poetry that was written like yesterday, but by one of my friends, poets, and just translated it into English. And that was my way of when you're trying to deal and work with this text, not as a reader, but as a translator, because I do translate professionally. It helps because you you have the distance from the text. You're not involved anymore in the meaning. You're just choosing the words, the phrases, and that was my therapy on how to deal with it. And it was never published. I usually just sent them the English version of their own poetry, and that was a way of dealing. So you can have a very quick and close relationship with the poet who feels the same as you do. And then when a lot of people at one moment receives this joy of poetry, they suddenly rediscover the whole landscape. So this is a thing, it is more difficult to market, to promote, to do marketing. It is very important, and it is very rewarding in terms of understanding, what have you done. And also, it is very different. So even with the rights, I'm sure that it's the same with Spanish-speaking countries. It is easier to sell poetry as a part of a collective anthology of poetry. And we now know that, I think last year there was anthology of Ukrainian poets published in Spanish, and it was a part of the big program on government support. No, it was not government. I think it was a House of Europe project that supported financially a number of translations, including this one, which was Ukrainian poets into Spanish language. So that is kind of a very rewarding feeling.
In the last years, a lot of Ukrainian books were published in Spain. Do you think there is enough support from this side and the other side to translate Spanish books into Ukrainian and Ukrainian books into Spanish?
It's never enough. But let's say, I would say that I'm very pleased in how Ukrainian side works, because we have a very strong state program by Ukrainian Book Institute, which is Translate Ukrainian. And they have seasons of pitches, and they have long lists of the supported books. And a lot of Spanish translations were published under this program. So they cover a lot of expenses. Then we have House of Europe, which is a collaboration of big countries like Great Britain, France, Germany. So they have this like co-joint cultural project, and they have their own same fundings for translations, but last years they are more focused on the endangered languages, as Crimean Tatar language, for example. So they will be more keen and I'm really supportive of that, more keen to give funding for the translation from Crimean Tatar to Ukrainian, or Crimean Tatar to some European language, and vice versa, than other ways. But I think, and I'm sure of that actually, that Ukrainian publishers and Ukrainian authors will benefit from having financial support from Spanish or Spanish-speaking countries and markets. Even in terms of, we're not talking about just Ukrainian writers translated to Spanish. There are a lot of Spanish authors that were never translated to Ukrainian. Mm-hmm. For example, yesterday we were we were on the Ministry of Culture stand, and it has the list of all the winners of Premio Cervantes, and we were just counting and like having a very sad game, just counting the ones that were translated.
How many?
Two of them, Borges and Llosa. That's it. Maybe one more. Like let's give this one more option. Maybe I don't remember someone, which also just states how much more can be done. And this is a huge area for Spanish-speaking countries to step in, because the Premio Cervantes is not given just to Spanish writers. It is given for Spanish language, which means that Colombian authors or like Colombian main literature figures can be translated and published in Ukrainian. And we already have publishers who want to work specifically with Spanish language. So if they would have this option with funding, I know that, and I was the part of a few projects funded and supported by Spanish embassy in Ukraine, which is magnificent, and things that they do are really extraordinary. So if this support would be bigger, I think that it is beneficial in both ways, to know Ukrainian culture and to having, like, you have a chance to be very fast and very furious in understanding, like in giving Ukrainians the Spanish-speaking writers you want.
Okay.
Because the country is very open.
I you have time for a few questions for the audience.
If you do.
Any question for Inga?
Or for Alfonso? I think we've talked a lot.
Well, I think it was very interesting, your words about these times.
And I think
or something you like to underline before leaving?
I would say that this is not an announcement. I don't have any like, relationships with the publishers, because we were chatting about the Victoria Amelina post-mortem book that was already published in English and received George Orwell Prize in the UK. By the glimpse of the media coverage, I can assume that it will be translated to Spanish.
I think so, yeah.
Pretty fast. And it's a very sad joy to have this book. Like, this book should have never happened in the way that it is. She just should have finished her book as she wanted it to be, and let's be honest, it would be better if the war didn't start it, but we have what we have. This is a very common Ukrainian expression, like we've got what we've got.
Yeah.
So under these circumstances, I am very pleased that this book, I hope that it will be translated into Spanish, because this is probably the piece of non-fiction writing which I would highly recommend to anyone and everyone, because this is for us, we knew the person. This is a very personal thing. But for the general, readership, for the general reading and bookish society, it's just a very, very important author that was lost. And if we have something that we can read and fuel ourselves with the ideas that she had, I think we would become much better people. So since we started our conversation and devoted it to Victoria, I think this is a main thing to finish on the same note. And then move to poetry, to a wonderful talk about poetry.
I love A Home for Dom, and I promise to buy this new book and to read it and to recommend on our magazine.
We're going to chat about it.
And I hope that there is some contributors of our magazine, Frontera D. I hope that Rabasa Amelia will write something about this new book by Victoria Melina.
And I see nodding that we will have it. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very
much
for your time. Thank you.